Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everybody watching. This is the Dirt Underneath On Deck speaker series, and I'm so happy to welcome Michael Mabbott, filmmaker, to our studio today.
Thank you.
I'm Cynthia Chan. I'm the administrative director and business coach here, and this is the 5th or 6th in our series. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you.
Michael, you are a writer, a director, filmmaker. You just had a documentary premiere at Sundance and South by Southwest, and Toronto's Hot Docs. Any Other Way, Jackie Shane's story. So I've invited you here because I think your story will be really inspiring to our community of actors who want to write, who want to direct, who want to produce their own films. And for them to understand what it's like to work with a director in terms of the casting process and the relationship between actor and director on set and preparation. So that's sort of what I have planned for today. Is that okay?
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay. Why don't we start off with the spark that you had to be an artist, to be in this industry. If it was writing, if it was directing, what led you here?
It was definitely writing, and that took me into. I wrote some short stories and had one published, and a filmmaker in my hometown of Edmonton, Alberta, had read it in this magazine and came to me and said, "I'd like to make this into a short. Can I? And would you be involved?" And that was huge for me because being on set for that, and up until that point, my only tool was writing in words, and seeing the collaboration, seeing all these wonderful actors take those words, do surprising things that I couldn't have thought of myself with these words. It was about an artist, and so we had all this gorgeous artwork from a painter. And the soundtrack, like seeing all of these things. I love music, I love art, I love writing, and so the fact that all of these things could come together like that, it wasn't just me and the written word, and from that moment I was like, I think it's film. But I had a little dodge into, I studied journalism, and I think I was trying to, I really wanted to get sort of a classic rock and roll interview, and tried, but most of my interviewees didn't quite cooperate in the way I wanted them to, and so then I started out making a mockumentary. Was the first thing that I did, and I think it was, if I can't get the interview myself, I'll make it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's quite a large leap to, having your story produced, to doing it all on your own. Like, what was the time period in between from first being inspired to seeing somebody else produce your work?
Oh God, it must have been about 6 years before I from that original short film to making my first feature, probably about at least 6 years. And during that time, I wrote it, and it was a mockumentary about country music in the 70s, and I wrote it and I took it out to a bunch of cast because it was a mockumentary, and so it was real people, and it was a fake hero woven through a storyline of real people and their real stories. And so I started collecting a kind of incredible cast, and then found a producer, a financier who came in, and so that piece was there. And throughout this process, I had kind of said, like, I just wanted this made, and I'd only directed, a couple short films, and so I was certainly always open to somebody coming in and directing it, if it moved the dial, but you need all these pieces to come together at one time, and eventually, partially it was my relationship with the performers that I think made me feel confident that I could direct this. It was also a mockumentary, which meant I was mocking something, like that there was a formula that was there before, and I wasn't creating something new. I was putting a new spin on something that was there, so I felt like I could do it, and luckily convinced a bunch of other funders and producers to let me do it. But it was a process, and I would have been incredibly happy had somebody come in as the director to do it, you know. But I was also elated that I was able to do it myself.
Right, because you got to live out your dream of interviewing these incredible musicians.
Yeah.
I mean, the list is long in this film, which is called The Life and Hard Times of Guy Triffico.
Yeah.
So you interview Jim Cuddy and Merle Haggard and Chris Christopherson. So while you're interviewing them, did you feel like you were like a journalist, or did you feel like you were directing actors?
A tiny bit of directing actors, mostly a journalist, I would say. And that film was completely scripted. Every word was scripted, and
including their interview.
Including their interviews before we started shooting.
Okay.
You know, and we raised money off that script, and it was, you know, a very solid script, I thought. And between, we would shoot it as a scripted thing, and I would always allow as much improv or whatever if they felt more comfortable saying something else, or saying it in a different way. I was always very open to that. And inevitably, when people tell me their favorite lines in that movie, it is inevitably something that somebody else made up on the day, you know what I mean? Which is wonderful. Like, that's the best collaboration possible. And then I would interview them just straight up as a documentary interviewer would. Okay. And so, which then allowed us to, in the edit suite, you know, it was a fictional story to a degree, and so we had the script that we could manipulate and edit, but then we had all these other stories, so it gave us so many options of how to put it together and what story to tell.
So I know that the actors at the Dirt would just love to hear more about the casting process and what goes into you making a final decision on casting, because you had the musicians, but then you also had a cast for the fictional characters. Mm-hmm. So can you tell me a little bit about like what went into the process? Were you working with a casting director? Did you know, what was that process like? Yeah,
well, I believe we were working with Lisa Pearson and John Comerford on that, I believe, a while ago, a little foggy. I had someone in mind to play the lead who had never acted before, but was a performer. Matt Murphy is his name, extraordinary Canadian talent from the Super Friends and Flashing Lights, and he had a thing called Little Orton Hoggett and the 10-Cent Wings. It was a country novelty act. It was a super group of like some people from Sloan, etc. And Little Orton Hoggett was very much a character, and so I knew that he could do it musically, which was a huge thing, and I wanted it to be as authentic as it could possibly be, and it was based on a bunch of songs that I'd written, and so that piece was there. I remember our distributor, but then we took it out and auditioned a whole bunch of other people because we had to, because our distributor and our financiers wanted us to, and I really fought for Matt. And I remember a distributor saying something like, you know, I don't see it, but you know, if you really believe in it, then you can do it. But if this doesn't work, it's on you.
So why were you fighting for him? Like, was it like a gut feeling? Did he like check all the boxes? Like
he's had a lot of things that I look for in an actor that's trained and has experience. He was a very thoughtful man. He was an interesting brain, and had a different way to look at things, and took a lot of the stuff that I wrote and put a spin on it comedically or dramatically or emotionally that I wouldn't have thought of. And I knew Matt quite a bit on a personal level, and like so. And a musician, an actor playing a musician, that's a tough gig, you know.
So he had the chops.
So he had the chops, which and you can't. It would be easier, I think, to in the edit suite and on the floor work with an actor, to a non-actor, to get a performance, and then get somebody who didn't have the musical chops that Matt had to get the musical performance. So yeah, and then all the other parts were much more traditional casting, and we saw a lot of people, and it was my first feature, and I think it was a really I learned a lot, I think, about how to approach casting, and in particular there was, as a writer and director, it feels like the collaboration with an actor or with any of your collaborators, any of your keys, if somebody can bring my vision to life, if somebody can bring to life what I had pictured originally when I wrote this, I kind of see that now as, I don't know if failure is too strong a word, but like, that's not enough. Like my goal, my dream is to collaborate with somebody and say, here's this, hope that they respect what it is and where it's coming from, but then bring their own spin to it, And on this one of the actors walked in and just nailed it right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. This is how I heard it. This is how I saw it.
So auditioned really well.
She auditioned incredibly well. And I left it at that because I was just blown away and probably overwhelmed by the amount of people, and we saw a lot of people, but kind of did it literally really well. And then on set, it was a little, I had trouble working with this person. That sounds, they ended up doing a really wonderful job, and the performance was great, but it was, I wish I hadn't just taken it at face value, like I wish I had approached auditions a little differently, it was a lesson I learned very quickly, and probably within that, but like I want to know who these people are, what, how their mind works, what they think about, and I feel like the audition can be more of a conversation, and this person was cast, but like I would so encourage actors to come in and give their take on this, like not be giving me necessarily what I want, what they think I want.
Do you think most directors in your position come with that point of view?
I hope so, but I don't know, and maybe not.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
I think it's really good to know that there's a group of directors who are really interested in collaboration. That they want to see what the actor can bring and enhance and amplify the words on the page. I mean, I find this so fascinating because of your original story. That you weren't writing that short story so that it was going to, like, you didn't have a vision in mind of what it would look like on film.
Yeah, or I didn't have that vision.
Right.
That was better than my vision.
Right, so you're striving for the best that it can be with collaboration.
Yeah, and I mean, in an audition, like I think it's helpful to remember that, like, this is the first time that a writer or director is seeing this work on its feet, is hearing it. So it's, from my point of view, this is a wonderful time of play and of discovery and of being able to tweak things. Like as people are reading things, I'm rewriting in my head, and when people are bringing something unique to it, like I'm either seeing my own flaws because an actor is bringing it to life and I can say that doesn't work, or like it's a time to play, it's a time to improve, it's a time to tweak. And so it is almost more helpful when an actor comes in and is taking maybe a different take on it, or is taking a risk, or is having fun, because it's like the first sandbox you get to play in. And so therefore, if an actor's coming in having fun and being like, let's mess around, that's the person I want to be with on set. And at the bare minimum, I will get sort of what I want, what I see in my head, but to be able to go in with an actor that is willing to play, is open, is, you know what I mean, is thoughtful and is brave, like that's who you want to be with on set, because it's going to make it better, you know? So
Right.
it's like, and I keep thinking
It's a lot of pressure for a first date.
Well, is it like, is it?
Right.
Or is
I mean,
it
because you're saying you want the person to be themselves.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And to see the best match possible
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. So I think the pressure of saying, if I say it this way, I'm going to get this job, is a terrible pressure, and you're not going to be, you know, and you're also maybe. The example of this, where this started, of what I learned in my first casting thing, is like, if you figured out in your preparation, this is the way to do it, to adjust in the room, let alone on set, that's going to be tough, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, you know, that not to prepare, not to try to figure out what this means and all of that, but like to come in and be loose and take some risks, I think is that would be a more fun first date to me than like, I have to get this way, because, you know, who knows?
Okay, so I don't want to forget, you said something about preparation, and that's a lot of, when I was asking our DIRT faculty, what should I ask Michael, right? There were a lot of questions about preparation, so I don't want to forget to ask you about that. I also want to ask about, you know, if you could go back now and work with that actor on that film, now that you're 19 years out, would you direct them differently to have a better second, third, fourth date while you're filming? Like, if you can go back in time, what would you change about how you communicated with that person to get them to be less rigid in their choices?
That's a good question. I think if I could go back in time, it would be to that original audition, and not just be complacently like, that was amazing, but like, that's great. Let's try it a couple different ways. Let's do something, you know, different,
Okay.
and see how loose we could be.
And have you done that in subsequent auditions when someone comes in and just nails it? Is that a red flag for you? And then you ask them to play a bit more?
I mean, if they just nail it, great. You know, like, obviously, because there's preparation, there's figuring out what this is within as much as you can do that with sides, etc. So I'm not gonna, like, you know, it's not a red flag if they nail it, but
Okay.
I think there's a way to approach it for a director to kind of maybe preempt that. You know, I remember once, because I'm genuinely interested, and because I think it's just a funny way in that room to break the ice, I'll start it, you know, like, my casting sessions are never a line of people sitting there quietly, you know, like, I'm like, my line is often like, how have you been? And I'm curious, but then within that question, there's also a bit of like, what do you mean, how have I been? Do I know you? Have we met before? How have I been since when? You know? And so partly it's an icebreaker to just be like, A, we're not just jumping into this. How are you going to react to the question? And we're just having a conversation. And the one red flag I've had is asking that question, like, what's going on? What you doing this summer? And an actor being like, can we just start? I'm ready to go. Can we just start? And I'm like, this is...
Okay.
This can't be... This
I'm ready to act,
know?
yeah.
And on set, like, there's so much going on. Like, you've got to be able to roll with it a bit. So I think that's... Obviously, if somebody nails it, that's great. And
Okay.
hopefully we can take it to another place, or, you know...
I just remembered the other thing you told me when we were doing our prep interview about how sometimes you ask for different takes to help you. And so to reassure the actor that you're not trying to make it particularly uncomfortable for them, but you just want to see how it might sound another way.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit more about that?
Well, that's, I mean, like, the oldest trick in the book that I'm sure you all know is, like, if you're having trouble on set on the day getting it, the line / lie is like, look, we got it. That was perfect. Let's just try something different. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And which that shouldn't necessarily mean sometimes when people say
We're
that.
pulling the curtain back. All the secrets are coming out.
And
Love it.
I want to be very clear that sometimes that might be true, but a lot of the times it's just like, okay, relax. We're good. No need to be stressed.
Yeah.
We got it. We have time. Let's just have some fun. And the trick of it, the manipulation of it, is sometimes like we're trying to get back to something closer to what we need or what we want or whatever, and we're not getting it. But also, like, amazing stuff happens because of that, you know, and I find out more about the character, and, you know, so I don't know, I think that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, it's really neat. Even just the way you're describing it now, like you're saying, like, be relaxed, and you're doing these arm gestures, and it seems like that's the environment that you create in the casting process, the audition, and on set. Like, that's specifically how you like to work, right?
Yes.
Like, there's flow, there's collaboration. It's not like Michael said this,
Yeah.
right?
Oh God, no. Yeah, I mean, and I know some people work like that, and I kind of can't afford to work like that because I'm not an auteur like some people might be, you know, like I want the benefits of the collaboration, you know, like, and I don't know how a lot of other how some great directors work, and maybe that's it, this is what I have and it has to be like this, but like, I don't feel like I can afford that. I need to get all the creative talent and ideas from as many people around me as I possibly can, you know?
Okay.
And on that first, in my first film, The Guy Terrifico, we were recording the soundtrack, and we recorded it in Austin and then in Halifax, and there was a wonderful producer, the record producer in Halifax, Charles Austin, that was doing a bunch of the recording for us, and he had this beautiful analog studio, and his shtick was like, I don't really know how anything works, I'm just a vibe merchant. And that stuck with me. He was like,
what merchant?
A vibe merchant.
A vibe merchant.
I deal in vibe, and I just want to create a vibe where the artists feel comfortable and feel safe. And a few weeks later, I walked into my first day of shooting, which was with Chris Christopherson at the Opera House, and there was like trucks and all of these things and all of these people and all this shit that I didn't know who they were, what they did. And Charles' voice of like, you're a vibe merchant, like it suddenly seemed it dawned on me, either because of survival or whatever, but that all of these people are here to make this actor look good. And there was like a dome around that actor and me, and it was just us there with this team that was there to support us. And so if I can make that safe space, you know, that's how I see the job.
Yeah, I like that description. So one of the questions was, at what point do you kind of pull away because you're confident that the actor and you are on the same path? But it almost sounds like you're collaborating right up until the moment.
I think, I mean, it's I guess a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so can you give an example, maybe from the most recent film, of where it was collaborative, but you had a lighter touch, like you were able to pull back a bit because you're really confident in their choices?
That I think, and that's where you want to be. And,
okay.
And so, I mean, my interactions with actors on set, I think, probably split into two categories. One is technical sort of stuff, like, that was wonderful, this camera's going to be doing that, or we need this for that, so could you play it a little more like that, you know? And the other part is vibe merchantry and making them feel safe and feel like, you know, there's so much going on, and sometimes the actor that's sitting there waiting or whatever is not the first thing on people's mind. And I want them to feel comfortable. And so if that is like, I've done a bit of TV, and I'm not a hugely technical director, and it always shocked me that we'd block and everybody would be doing their thing afterwards. And these actors would be sitting there sort of an afterthought and just sitting there, and I'd be like, hey, do you want to run lines? And they'd be like, what? Especially if it was a series, like that seemed like a shocking thing. And so I just want to be there with them, for them, or not, whatever their vibe is,
Okay.
But it's.
And you're picking up that everybody has a different vibe or what they need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like some people are like, no, I do not want to run lines with you.
Leave me alone.
Yeah, you're not an actor. But like that's so it is case by case for sure. I feel like I feel like on a set when things are really going and you're on the clock and there's dollars flying out the window and all of that sometimes an actor can be for everybody around them an afterthought, and I want to make sure they don't feel like that, because obviously this is, at the end of the day, this is what it is. So like be there in some way,
Yeah.
and
And just be attuned and like attentive and okay.
And I mean, I hope any actor feels that they have the right to say, I have a question, can we talk? You know what I mean? And to have that channel open. And then some of it is just like hanging out. You know what I mean? Like just being.
Right, because the days are long.
The days are long, and like,
Yeah.
and finding connection, finding other art, like whatever, so yeah, just trying to create a safe space where people feel like they can say, can I have another take, or could we try this, or like that feels like a big part of the job.
Do you have an example of where you had like a breakthrough or an aha moment with an actor? Something you said, something you did, some special vibe you helped with that really helped turn a corner?
God, I have nothing that specific that comes to mind.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing that I can think of right off the top.
Okay. When you're describing this sort of like dome and activity and like the cameras and all the technical stuff, I kind of want to zoom out and talk a bit about the production aspect of all this, because there's so much going on in the behind the scenes, right? Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to be the person, putting the words on paper and then pulling together your team, and then you're directing it, and then at the same time you're dealing with your producers and you're trying to get this whole big like spaceship off the ground, right? Like, can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a vast question.
I know.
Obviously, it takes an army, and hopefully everybody does their job. In other words, like everybody stays in their lane to some degree. I think you have to be open constantly. Like you have to sort of, sometimes protecting the integrity of the thing that you're doing means just letting things play out and letting people have their say and all of that. If that's making any sense?
Right. So
you have to do a lot
people
of
want to be
listening.
heard.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So there might be a lot of like opinions and inputs, and they just need to air it out.
Yeah.
And it might not be the best choice for the project, but they want to be heard.
They want to be heard.
Okay.
And the number of times, and I don't know if it's human nature, but if you try to stop that or don't listen or fight it, then it's going to be more of a debate to get to what you want. The number of times where they just want to be heard, you let them say their thing. Sometimes, like, an example is like, what if somebody has an opinion on a cut, or more specifically on a take? Like, what if we did that? Let's do it. And you do it, and then down the line, it drops away. Do you know what I mean? Like, the best idea wins, and there's always going to be a lot of people with ideas, a lot of which are going to be great. Like, you have to listen to all these things, but yeah, you have to do a lot of listening in order to get what you want. Was
there a suggestion, or were you asked to do something from a producer that you were first resistant and it actually ended up being great in the end?
I want to say yes. I have a
Make
list
it
of
up.
things that weren't. I honestly, like, with notes or anything like that, like my first instinct is to be as absolutely open as I can possibly be, and try to see their idea out, and my second instinct is to be like, are you crazy, you know, and fight it. But like I because of the first instinct, like I probably couldn't, by the end, after cut after cut after cut of things, or you know, if it's scripts or cut, like I think that, I hope that everyone I've worked with has some part in some piece in that script, in that final cut. You know what I mean? Like some suggestion, some thought, some question that you, in the edit suite or on the day, you, like, I'll take any idea if it's good, you know? So I mean, I think, and the thing about notes and working with producers and stuff like that, like, they're either gonna have a great idea that makes the film better, or they're gonna have an idea you don't agree with, but in order to justify why you're not taking that note, you have to stress test it, and so you've stress tested it, you know what I mean?
Right.
And which is a really, really important thing. So yeah, and you know, on Jackie, the Jackie Shane documentary, we worked with a program called the Trans Film Mentorship that had a lot of younger kids, like 20-year-olds, and who came in as interns, and to give, whenever interns came in, the first thing we'd have them do is sit down and watch it wherever we were at in the cut, and their thoughts on, you know, and then you'd sit down and talk with them, and like their thoughts, their ideas, again, like if they don't make sense, or if they don't make sense to the overall thing, that's fine, you don't have to take them, but like those insights and those contributions are incredible, you know, like.
So were you able to, day by day, implement some of their feedback?
Oh, for
into
sure.
The work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I think, I mean, it's a funny, not a push and pull, but like you and the editor are sitting there, you're at once protecting this thing and trying to get this, there's this purity, and there's, you know, a lot of the notes are like, but that doesn't make sense to the next thing coming up, you know? Like,
So it affected the editing process?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, it affected the writing process, it affected every process, you know, but like, run it, take input from whoever you can, try to, you know, if it makes it better, if it stress tests, if it does whatever, like what's the downside, you know? So I similar to what I said about my first film, of like, inevitably everyone's favorite line is something somebody made up on the day and said, can I say this? I'm like, yeah, man, that's great. I feel like the same thing of having people from script to edit to cuts and all of that, like, you don't have to take the notes, you know, so why not take the notes?
Who wrote The Lottery Solved a Lot of Problems? From Guide to Riff.
I think I did.
Good line.
Yeah.
I'll give you credit for that. I really like that line.
Thank you. That's a first. Yeah, there was definitely things that were there originally, but like, again, within the collaboration, like, that's the foundation, and what can people come in and build off and have fun with that, you know? So yeah, but yes, I think I wrote that.
Okay, so why don't we open up to questions from our studio audience, and then I'm going to do a time check. Oh, perfect. Questions from the audience, and then I'm just going to look over to see if there's any other last minute things I wanted to ask you.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me ask one more question.
Christian submitted a lot of questions, and I hope that I addressed a lot of them.
Oh, is it true? That sometimes an actor might be more interesting than the lead?
An extra?
No, like someone who's a supporting character, or you know, large principal, and they may give a read that would take focus from the lead, let's say.
Oh, sure.
Like if you had someone that you were like, oh crap, they would have been, like, that person would have been a perfect choice for this character. I can't even use them because...
Oh, yeah, I think I see what you mean. And I mean, I guess, like, casting an ensemble thing where that could happen. And so for whatever, there's so many variables from, physical look to an ethnicity or whatever. There's so many variables of what you're, again, playing it, being able to be a little loose. Like, what if your lead is locked in for whatever variables, whatever boxes that person checks in, and this person that you're talking about comes in and nails it in a way that is maybe a better performance than the lead. In an ensemble, at least, you could have the opportunity to be like, okay, this guy came in to read for that, this man or woman came in to read for that. That's amazing. They're not, for whatever reason, the person for that role, but they're undeniable. Their read for the lead was undeniable. So how can that shuffle into another part of the ensemble cast? And then what does that do? Like, it's a beautiful, beautiful puzzle. So, and I would hope that casting directors and producers are also open to, maybe that is the lead. Do you know what I mean? But again, if we're looking for talent and interesting people, then hopefully that lead, I mean, it happens all the time. And certainly, I did a show called The Yard, which was a big ensemble, and it happened all the time that somebody came in reading for one thing, was like, okay, we can't, for whichever reason, do that, but we're going to find a place for them in a different character, certainly. Is that getting to what you're talking about?
Sort of,
Yeah.
Are there times where you don't cast somebody, because they weren't right, but you would be interested in working with them again? Like, do you keep them at the back of your mind?
Oh yeah, for sure. Which, I mean, again, like, I keep having this. I'm not sure who to attribute the quote to, but it's basically, you're not entitled to the fruits of your labor. You're only entitled to the labor. And that auditioning is like, come in. I don't want to call it play because I know it's work, but come in, do your thing, and whether you get cast in this specific role is not necessarily, it's certainly not up to you, and there's so many variables of other people that are locked in or whatever, but come in and do your thing, and like, if not this time, next time, or something, or certainly a different role. The first short film I did, I had a gentleman. He was Quebecois and had an incredibly thick accent, and he came in and just slaughtered this audition, like, and then not in a positive way. It was one of the worst auditions I've ever seen in my life. It was just terrible. And then he insulted the script slightly. And as we were sitting there, and we'd spent a day, all day long casting, and we didn't find anybody. But this gentleman was so uniquely, memorably terrible at what he was reading for that we were like, we have to cast this. This guy will be cast in this thing. And we found a role and tweaked a role just because he was just awesome.
What did you put him in? What was the role?
His role, he ended up being a guy at a diner, and he actually pulled off something. We called it our stunt, and he's had whatever line. I think we punkishly wrote him quite a ridiculous line. I think we used the term, don't give me that transubstantiation argument again, just because we knew he would just do something insane to those lines if he did what he did on the audition. So we gave him this ridiculous line, but he was a customer at a diner, and he was sitting there eating pie and smoking, and the stunt that he did that none of us knew was he smoking, and then he took a bite of the pie, took a few chews, pie still in his mouth, took another drag on the cigarette, inhaled or exhaled, and then started eating more pie. And I don't know if on the day we noticed this, but it certainly in the edit we were like, oh my God, this is golden. But that, so I guess all that to say, like, that's an extreme example, but like, I certainly, if an actor comes in and there's, you're going to remember them, and yeah, it's not always your role, and it certainly often has nothing to do with your talent, with your preparation, with any, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many variables, which again is like, you're not responsible, you can't be responsible for any of that. So come in and do the best you can, and you'll either find another role within it, or certainly stick in people's minds,
I think that fact can be freeing for actors, but also depressing too.
Really? Yeah. I mean, I'm a...
that they have so little control. And that there's so many things beyond their control, right?
I mean, I guess my empathy for that comes from, writing. Like, all I want right now is a quick no. Like, the ratio of yeses to nos from broadcasters, from funding agencies, from everything, like, it is the vast majority is no's, and like, what are you gonna do? Like, try to give them what they want in a different way, and have it be a less authentic thing or something? Like, it is. You can look at it as depressing, or I guess I just look at it as, this is the job, and there's a lot of no's. So
I think it's great that you highlighted that. I mean, recently we had our round of interviews for our residency, and Christian came up with a great question for the people we were interviewing, which is, how do you deal with rejection? How do you pick yourself up and get back in the game? Because it is a fundamental reality, right, of this job.
And what were the answers, or what were the...
The answers were, some people did creative things, like they grounded themselves doing right brain activities.
Yeah.
Some people had almost like an automatic short-term amnesia, like as soon as they do the audition, forget about it.
Oh,
like literally it's in the past. Some are newer to the industry, so they're still learning how to deal with rejection and the quick no.
Yeah. Well, and it's tough. Like, it is, no matter what coping, no matter what perspective, it's tough. Like, it's a tough way to make a living for all of us, and I guess, and so I'm not like, it doesn't not affect me sometimes when you're like, what, come on, but it's more a cumulative thing, and for me, all you can do is keep on doing it. Like, when I play poker, there's some, I don't know what the stat is, but 1 out of 10 hands that you're dealt are winning hands. So when I get dealt that losing hand, I'm kind of excited. I'm like, I'm gonna fold,
right.
And I'm gonna keep my powder dry and live on it. And I want those 9 stinkers. I want those 9 rejections, because mathematically speaking, there's gonna be a yes. But yeah, which just means you just have to keep on doing it.
Christian?
Can we FBI my voice?
Okay, Jack.
Yeah. I have a question. With casting directors presenting their favorites, have you ever been like, are you fucking kidding me? This person?
I'm sure I have. I definitely have.
Because sometimes I just say this, again, hopefully I'm FBI'd. But some of the choices are safe.
Yeah.
And they're not the most exciting, they're not the most unique, they're just safe.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about a casting director delivering you a very safe choice?
I think that, that is a collaboration as well, like us working with a casting director. And so I hope they're, if somebody were to deliver a bunch of safe people, that my reaction would be such that, like, we're looking for somebody a little more like this, like we're, so, I have there's some wonderful casting directors who are just good at what they do and have a pulse and on who's out there doing what. They do have their people, their go-to people. So I mean, I do have a lot of faith. It's not faith. I have a lot of, they know, a lot of them know how to do their job and do it well. But I think that I would hope that would be an adjustment. It would be an adjustment with me, certainly. I think I would never probably not see somebody, like, who knows what the safe choice could do, but they usually do what they do, which is why they're safe. And so, then I guess it's keeping looking, but I would hope that there would be a language and understanding of what the tone of this project is, and that it's not, X, safe choice.
John?
I remember a story you told once, and I think this sort of speaks a little bit to if the director's in the casting session, because sometimes it's a casting director only, and then they'll accumulate it, right, to give you what they feel is the best. And I remember you telling me a story once about about being in a session and somebody did something really wackadoodle, like way out there. Do you remember this story?
I don't.
I mean, I can tell sort of my memory of it, but you were sort of like I remember you were so puzzled, and you said, and you said something like, that was so, and then the casting director was like, I know, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. No, it was so intriguing. Right.
It was amazing.
And then they kind of flipped because they got to, because they couldn't read you in that moment.
Exactly it.
Yeah.
It was terrible. No, that was amazing. That was amazing. Amazing. I mean, they're necessary. I love them. I love working with them because, again, they're like, we're playing this thing and it's the first time. But they're trying to get this done, and they're giving you the safe choices, so they don't end up having to look at 400 people from here to Vancouver and stuff like that. Which happens. So. Can I tell my favorite casting story ever?
Yes.
You should have my friend Joe on, because he's an actor in Vancouver. He's an actor who's transitioned. He's still acting, but he's transitioned to writing and to directing, which has been a really interesting journey to see, and him taking that agency. But he just has many heartbreaking audition stories. And my favorite was, he's a very cute, young-looking Canadian boy living in London and having a hell of a... He went to school in London. He was having a hell of a time busting in and getting any auditions. And by hug or crook, he got this audition with a huge British director. And it was for a period piece that involved horseback riding. And he was doing this audition, and it was more just an interview, sort of two people chatting. And the director said, do you ride horses? And Joe, I think, lied and said, oh, yeah. And then the director said, like the wind? And Joe said, I love the wind. And there was a huge pause in the room, uncomfortable pause, and the director said, no, I mean, do you ride like the wind? And Joe decided to double down. He said, no, I know what you meant. I just want you to know that I like the wind. And it was like a little pause. Kept digging. And then they said, thank you very much. Next. And Joe said he got to the door, and it was like an out-of-body experience. His hand was on the door, and his brain was saying, don't say it, don't say it. And he turns back to them, and he goes, I ride side saddle. Which was true. Joe rode side saddle. I don't mean to...
Did he get cast?
No, he didn't. No, he definitely didn't. And then there's millions of other stories that he didn't get cast in, and he carved out a really good career, and he just kept going back and kept doing it, and he worked his ass off. So anyway.
Oh boy. Thank you for sharing that story.
It's a tough gig, man.
Is there anything else that you really want our community to know? Because you've shared so much today.
I think in increasingly, like, if actors are, like, you're reading scripts all the time, you're working all the time in terms of something like The Dirt or wherever, like you have a skill set there, and access to, like, it seems increasingly like we just have to make this stuff and start doing this stuff and writing scripts and doing it. And again, like, maybe you have no control over what the outcome is, but like, you can just do it. You know what I mean? And even if it's just for like becoming better, and maybe the play doesn't have to go up, the script doesn't have to get optioned and financed or whatever, but like, just do it. On the Jackie Shane documentary, I spent many years interviewing Jackie, or I spent over a year interviewing Jackie, and that cost me nothing but time, a lot of time, but that cost me nothing but time. And I was able to do that without financing, without anybody, without, like, it was just that step. And then when Jackie passed away, that piece, those interviews, which was just us talking, costing me nothing, were the basis that became, they were what we raised the money on. They became the basis of the film, And I just think there's any action like that you can do, like, right, for, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to become whether it gets made or whatever, you're going to be a better actor, you're a better artist. Like, we just have to keep doing it, Like, it's an art, but it's just, if you just keep working and working, no matter what that looks like, it makes you a better artist, or makes you maybe pivot, you know what I mean? Like, and what actors are exposed to, like, it makes a lot of sense that, like, many actors transition to become directors because they're watching it, they're soaking it up, they're doing it. So, like, you got it there, And I guess I don't know many other communities, but the Toronto community is just extraordinary and so helpful, and I think partially because it's hard and people are struggling. So, like, we're doing this, like, make a short film with no money, and people are gonna flock to it, So that's it. We just have to keep working, I think.
And spend an hour of your Friday afternoon sharing all your wisdom.
Yeah, but this is so helpful for me, Like, this is like. Yeah, like, it's communication and community, so.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been wonderful.
I feel like if someone needed a definition of growth mindset, they just need to watch this interview. I mean, everything you're talking about is about, like, not being fixed, being open, releasing yourself of the end goal. So, I mean, that's my big takeaway. I learned so much.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Cyn.
Thanks for watching. Thanks to our studio audience. And until next time, bye.
That's fun.